Hi there. In this lesson, I'm going to show you some of the materials you might want to use if you decided to go ahead and try the handmade pattern. So in here I have some squares which you will need. I'm pretty sure you can use different type of paper, different shapes, but I do like to work with squares because they line up quite nicely. So these are 15 centimeters, or you can use smaller ones if you like. This is just one of those blocks you can put next to the phone, you know, that sort of thing where you take quick notes. I usually use post-its when I do my hand-drawn patterns, when I just want to sketch the initial sketch, because it's easy to just stick down. But in this case, I'm going to turn these and I will show you what I mean. And the sticky bit on the post-its will get in your way. So just use some plain ones. And you can use just normal printer paper if you like, or you can use, this one is like a sketching pad. So I think it's 180 grams. And it makes your life easier because it's a bit stiffer than normal printing paper, which is this one is a bit more flimsy, but it depends on how you like to work, and if you don't mind, then it's fine. It's all up to you really. And of course, if you want to use paints, then you will need something even heavier than this. So I have a few squares here, but I will tell you all about in another lesson, in the next lessons. And then to cut these squares, I use this one, which is a quilting square. I'm not sure of the exact name, but it's used for quilting. But it's perfect size to cut these little squares. You just trace the pencil all around it and then cut it. And of course you will need some nice scissors as well. And then I have here a selection of pencils. So to draw, normally I use a HB pencil. I think usually you can use a 2B or a B. It depends on how you like to draw and how heavy-handed you are. Personal preference again. You can use a mechanical pencil. You don't need to sharpen this, which is great. And I have, of course, some erasers. So this is just a normal plastic eraser which I cut in half diagonally. So it has this point which is quite nice to get into small spaces. And of course, if it's even smaller, the bit you want to erase, then you can use one of these. These are quite nice. It's a very small eraser, and I think you can get these from Amazon or any art shop, well-furnished art shops. And if you don't have one of these and you want to use good old-fashioned ruler, you need one of those. You can always take the measurements, do the lines, and cut your squares. And then, depending on how you want to go ahead, once you have your drawing, I show you one of the drawings. So these are the drawings we are going to do, and once you have it, you can just trace it, you know, not very carefully like this one. You can see maybe there is a pencil line, and then there is the pen. Because I'm not going to use image trace on this, I'm going to retrace it with the Illustrator. But you can do it nice and neat, and you can use image trace, so you will have this line, you know, nicely done, and then you don't need to retrace it or redraw it. So it's up to you. So if you want to trace your drawing, you can use one of these pens, for example, ink pens. So there are different sides of the nib. This one is 0.3. I have 0.5, which is a bit thicker, which I think is quite good when you want to actually do use image trace, because if you use a very small nib sides, then it might not come up well. This, I think, is getting a bit dry. And then you don't have to have all of these, of course. These, I think, were in a set, so from 0.1, which I've lost somewhere, to actually it goes from 0.05, which is really, really small, to 0.8, which is quite thick. So you can use that. Or of course you can use, there are brush pens. So if you want to have thicker lines at one point, you can use one of these. I think you need to practice a little bit to make these look nice, but if you like to do that. And of course there are, these were the Unipin pens, and I quite like the Micron as well. So this is a brush, but it's a bit different. You can see it's let's see, it's a longer brush, so it almost feels like a proper brush, and you can do different lines with this one. This is actually a nice purple color, and this is just a 0.1, so you can use that. The micro ones, I think of course there are different ranges of these, and as I say, you don't need all these. You can just have one of these, the one you like to use. And there is another option you can use when you do your drawing. You can color it and use image trace. Probably I would use Photoshop if I paint this, because with Photoshop you can keep your painterly look, but you can still use Illustrator. You just have to reduce the number of colors, of course, that you use. And if you want to paint your design, then of course you will need some brushes. So this is a range of brushes, and I have loads and loads because I just accumulated them during the years. So these go from the very expensive one, which is the Winsor & Newton Series 7. And if you want a big brush, I don't know if you can see this. If you want a big size of this, is quite expensive. This is a number 1. And this one, it's kind of mid-range, and it's very nice. It's soft, so for watercolor it's great. And you can have like a couple of numbers of this, like a 4, or maybe a 4, a 2, and an 8 or a 6. These are the Winsor & Newton sort of student grade, so it's Cotman, and these are not very expensive. These are quite on the cheap side, but they're quite good actually, and they last quite a long time if you take care of them. And this is again kind of mid-upper range. So this is a professional watercolor sable brush from Winsor & Newton, and I can't remember the price of each one of these, but this is kind of middle up range. And if you want to use watercolor, I would advise you to use a ceramic palette. There are loads and loads of different ones. There are flat ones with whales, round ones, but it makes painting so much nicer, the mixing of the paint in these palettes, because if you use a plastic one, they get all stained and the color tends to make puddles, so it doesn't really mix very nicely. I mean, it mixes, but it's a bit weird to work with. So this ceramic palette, it's very nice to use. And you will need paints as well. So again, don't get scared. You don't have to have all these colors. I'm kind of a color addict, and I bought loads and loads of colors during the years, and I actually have another one, like a smaller one of these. So I have loads, but you can have a basic set of, I don't know, 6, 12, and mix lots of different colors. These are Winsor & Newton, but there are some different makes as well, like Allbane and some other which I can't remember at the moment, but mostly a Winsor & Newton. And you can have, of course, the tubes, or which I have as well. And sometimes I just squeeze the color from the tube into these. You can buy these little containers empty. So some of these, like these ones, for example, you can see that they are with the color squeezed in it. Okay, so I think we've gone through all the materials you might need. Of course, if you prefer to draw with your iPad, you can do that. And I have one of these, which is, I think it's 12-inch screen. So you can use that with your Procreate app and your pen. It doesn't have to be an Apple pencil, but this one gives you the option of the pressure sensitive. And if you like to take a picture with your iPad of your sketch, let's say you make, this was a sketch, you want to take a picture of it, you can put it flat on your surface, and then you can use one of these, which is a photographer spirit level. So you're supposed to put, it's got a little groove in there, and you put this in your camera. But I put it in here on top of my iPad, and then it will help me make it level. You might have newer versions where you actually have a way inside, like in the camera app, to show you this. But if you have an older version where you don't have the spirit level, then you can use this. And when it's perfectly aligned, then you just take the picture. So just a little trick there for you. And of course you can use Procreate, or you can use another app, drawing app. You can use the Illustrator for iPad. And of course, this I almost forgot, where everything is resting. It's a light box, which is really, really useful. I got lots of tape here where I tape down the things that I trace. And it's very, very useful. You just, I couldn't do without this, actually. I mean, you can use a window, of course, but it's a bit uncomfortable to draw that way, and your arms get tired. So there are lots of makes of this, and this was about, I don't know, £30 or something like that. It wasn't really expensive, and it's got different lighting options, so stronger and less strong. So I would advise you, if you do this sort of work quite often, to get one of these. As I say, there are really expensive ones in the market, but this does the job as well as any other light box. It might be called light pad, actually, because it's quite slim as well. But there you go. So I think that's all I need to tell you. Of course, if you use your watercolors, you will need your water containers and a rag and some kitchen paper. But I think if you use watercolor, you will know all that already. So we're probably ready to move to the next lesson. So I'll see you in the next lesson.